Hello everyone, this is the new sound version of The Roadshow, the podcast version if you will. If you are wondering what all the big fuss is, or if this is even your first time listening to the show, welcome, my name is Jack Mortimer. I've been doing this show for about 4 years now, coming up to 4 years, started back in October of 2019, started out as an online radio show, and throughout that time I've made this show a bit of a mix of all things motoring. So in just a few moments' time, you've got your latest motoring news, of course, and then in this edition of the show, we've also got a look at Silverstone Festival, the artist formerly known as Silverstone Classic. I recorded a lot there. I really enjoyed myself as well, so hopefully you'll enjoy listening back to that. So I think we do need to make a start by heading over to the newsroom. Right then, let's take a look at the news, and I'm sure you've noticed as much as I have that this has been a pretty wet summer. Now, that is a problem in a lot of regards, but it's also helped to contribute to already large numbers of potholes on the British roads. And the dashcam manufacturer Road Angel are calling on the government to take action, else road users could face serious injuries. Between 2017 and 2021, the government have forked out over £32 million on compensation for almost 5,600 claims. What's more, Road Angel say that the pothole-related breakdowns were at a 5-year high this July, with over 50,000 call-outs being registered in the month. But if the potholes are left unrepaired, traffic will continue to wear away surrounding road, making them even bigger and leading to further damage, of course. In a statement made by Gary Digver, that's the founder of Road Angel, he called for local authorities to increase the amount of money allocated to road repairs, stating, and this is a quote, "Almost 30,000 people were killed or seriously injured on UK roads last year, and we fear these numbers could increase with the current state of the roads." In other news, it's the first week of the new number plates here in Britain, meaning anoraks like me are scouring fresh-looking cars on the roads to see their first 73 out in the wild. But new car buyers who want to save a bit of money can do so by taking a look at the old stock of 23 plates, the History Checker car vertical has said. Matas Buzelis, I apologise if I've got that name wrong, is a car expert from the company, and he said that the dealers are keen to shift older models from their forecourts, so it could be more inclined to accept lower offers when haggling. However, he also warned buyers to ask dealers how long the vehicle has been on the forecourt, and of course for used cars, to check their number plate to see if the vehicle's service history and MOT history is up to scratch, and of course if the vehicle has been stolen. Now, of course, this week is also the launch of the ULEZ zone, I should say. It's finally been rolled out in Greater London, and it's continuing to cause controversy. We all know the ins and outs of this scheme by now, but if you've forgotten, don't worry, here is a little bit of a summary. Generally speaking, if you drive a petrol vehicle that was made before 2005 or a diesel that was made before 2015 and enter Greater London as a whole, you now have to pay a fee of £12.50 or risk a fine. However, during the cost of living crisis that we find ourselves in, many have accused the London Mayor Sadiq Khan of taking money from the poor, stating in particular that the scheme is unlikely to reduce air pollution in the city. Indeed, some motorists have taken matters into their own hands by vandalising and destroying the cameras that monitor vehicles, with some sites reporting a vigilante team who have damaged about 600 of the things. The ULEZ rollout is certainly complete, but the next step, it seems, will not so much be convincing motorists that it's a good idea, but encouraging them to put down their weapons. Anyway, this is all getting rather bleak and Blade Runner-y, so why don't we talk about some new cars now, which for that matter are all ULEZ compliant. And we start off with a bit of information on the facelifted Hyundai i20 family hatchback. Now, if you recall, not much has changed on the outside, but Hyundai have given the interior once over, adding quite a bit more technology and standard equipment across the range. Well, we now know a little bit more about what will be offered here in Britain, and how much it will set us back as well. The basic version, which is known as the i20 Advance, will cost £20,770 and feature quite a few goodies, including 16-inch alloy wheels, an 8-inch touchscreen, air conditioning, cruise control, parking sensors front and back, a rear reversing camera, and LED head and taillights. Now, you also get a fair bit in the way of driver assistance functions as well, including front collision warnings and lane keep assist. Powertrains remain unchanged though, a 99 brake horsepower turbo petrol which is connected to either a 6-speed manual gearbox or, for a bit of extra money I think I meant to say, a 7-speed dual clutch which gives of course better acceleration. But we don't know if the high-end, or at least high-performance Hyundai i20N, their hot hatchback version, will undergo the same treatment as the rest of the range when deliveries take place later on in the year. Also from South Korea, Kia have unveiled another new electric SUV in their EV range. The Kia EV5 was shown off at the Chengdu Motor Show over in China, and it looks a lot like a scaled-down version of the massive EV9. As a result, it's a very boxy model which has a window line with a very distinctive 45-degree flick that goes up the rear quarter lights. Now, Kia say that this 5-seater will focus on comfort and usability for families, and that's certainly noticeable due to its wide stance for more interior width. It's still early doors, so we don't really know that much in terms of the powertrain that the EV5 will have, but we do know that its interior will feature a rather interesting interior lighting setup that has a grand total of 64 different colour options that can synchronise with whatever drive mode it's in, although I'm hoping there aren't 64 of those. Now, apparently this system isn't all for show either, as it dims when travelling at night to keep the driver more focused on the roads, and it can be used to alert them if they're travelling faster than the speed limit. We don't know if the Kia EV5 will actually be coming to the UK just yet, but experts believe that the company may announce it in a more official capacity, at least for European buyers, this October. And finally, I said it when we road tested one, and a lot of you said it too. Isn't the lettering odd on the back of the BYD Atto 3? Well, clearly BYD have listened, as the Chinese manufacturer have announced that they're going to stop putting their slogan on the tailgates of their models. Now, if you don't already know, BYD stands for Build Your Dreams, and all of the Atto 3 SUVs they've sold in this country since launching in March this year sport it, like some kind of weird motivational quote. However, early adopters of BYD cars across Europe have said that the lengthy badging doesn't look too good, with some saying it highlights the company's Chinese origins. Nevertheless, with the launch of the Seal, which we're told is just around the corner, the slogan will be removed, with European models in particular featuring what is said to be more discreet badging. It just goes to show that sometimes people's voices are still heard. Anyway, that is that for that. Of course, if you want to keep up to date with the latest motoring news as it happens throughout the week, why don't you follow us over on our social media pages? They're the same as they were when we were an online radio station, of course, or an online radio show, I should say. Of course, over on Instagram, the place to go to is D Stone Road Show. That's the letter D followed by Stone Road Show. Or if you're on Facebook, you can go to our group, add yourself to that. That is the Road Show Dougie Stone Radio. Of course, you can also email us. Our email address is theroadshow@gmail.com. That is theroadshow.radio@gmail.com. This is The Road Show, where now it's time for us to play Commercial Quiz Time. Yes, folks, we've actually got more dramatic music, specifically ones that's royalty-free. If you've not listened to the show before, this is the part of the show where I play to you an old commercial for a car. I'll bleep out the name of the car, and all you've got to do is try and listen to the music, voiceover, and of course my clues at the end. Try and guess what the car is. Why don't we take a listen to our commercial for this week?
To stay beautiful, you have to care about your looks. Watch what you eat. Keep in great shape. And of course, choose the safest car in its class according to Europe's latest independent tests. The new Stay Beautiful.
And there is our commercial for this week. It dates from 1999, specifically August of 1999, and it's a rather interesting one. This was when that car manufacturer really started to drive home the fact that a lot of their cars were safe. If you remember, 1999 was about the time that the Euro NCAP sort of crash testing became standardized across Europe, and a lot of focus was being put onto a lot of cars' track record in terms of safety. You might remember that the Rover 100, of course the spin-off of the Austin Metro, was deeply criticised for not being too safe. Well, it was a design from the late 1970s, really. But a lot of cars made by this manufacturer, late 90s, early 2000s in particular, were getting 5-star ratings, and they were really driving that point home. This particular car, I don't think did, however, it was incredibly successful. A lot of them you saw in a very bright yellow, which you may well remember from that time. If you haven't got a clue, don't worry, I'll let you know the answer at the end of the show. Now, though, it's time for us to take a trip to an event that happened last weekend. I absolutely loved it. I was camping for it. I was able to stay there for the whole 3 nights. This is my take on Silverstone Festival. Alright then, you join us at Silverstone Classic 2023. This is the 4th time we've been to the show, and it's always a good time, I have to say. It's not necessarily that many cars here compared to previous years. However, of course, it is just the Friday. Some people will be working, won't be able to take their cars, so tomorrow there may well be. But we are just currently in the shopping village, I believe it's called, looking at various things. Not everything car related, actually. It's a weird thing, actually, to start this kind of special edition of a festival dedicated to cars by looking at teak furniture. But it's not just any old teak furniture, of course. It's all been carved to look like some absolutely fantastic things. There's a bench which is carved to look like a horse lying down. It's quite something, that. And whilst we're on the topic of things that I bought at the show, I actually did, I really wanted to, ahead of the show, go to a specific model stand that's there every single year. And usually they have a box of cars for £1, used cars, as it was. Little Corgi Juniors, Matchboxes, Hot Wheels, stuff from the 80s predominantly, that, of course, I like to restore, unrivet, if you will, strip the paint off, respray it myself, add a few little details, stuff like that to make them look all brand new and customized. However, this year they did not have that, so that was a shame. What they did have, though, was a box of brand new 1/43 scale. So I think is that O gauge? I think it's O gauge, I'm not entirely sure, with railway scales, of old Soviet cars, which were £3 each. So I treated myself to those, a few Ladas and Moskoviches and Volgas and all of that kind of stuff. So I didn't walk away empty-handed, and I don't even have to respray these ones. And as well as all of the shopping stands, there are also a few stands for new car companies, specifically electric models, actually. I'm on the Polestar stand now, where they are showcasing the facelift version of the Polestar 2, a little bit more of an air vent, and as well as that they have a mid-range radar, so it's slightly better for autonomous driving. But the most exciting thing is inside the Polestar 3. The very first time I've seen one of these, it's a sort of low-slung SUV, or a high-slung estate car, if you will. Very, very capable car. I think the production start had been delayed, or it has been delayed. If you're interested in performance, for the long-range performance one, it will get you to 60 miles an hour in 4.6 seconds, top speed of 130 and a range of 347 miles, 379 miles if you just want the standard long-range version. Very, very impressive vehicle, and I'm very pleased to see it. So on the Abarth stand, they have a pair of 500Es, and they are actually I believe they call them the Turisme ones, basically the cabriolets, if you will. One in a very neon-y green, one in a very neon-y blue. I absolutely love the kind of new version of the Abarth Scorpion, which is kind of 80s scan lines. Really, really nice looking cars, these, and they have a synthesized exhaust note. I was also talking to someone who manufactures some kind of classic British sports cars that really are no more than a classic British sports car body on a brand new drivetrain, brand new platform, brand new drivetrain. You've God, it's got the lot. 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds, under 6 seconds he said, for an Austin Healey Sprite. So quite a bit more powerful, than the real deal. That was very cool indeed. Alfa Romeo are also here with the Tonale, their sort of mid-size SUV, maybe even large SUV really. Again, it is electric. Is it electric? I believe it is. Either electric or a plug-in hybrid, certainly. Just double-checked if you're keeping score at home, it is indeed a plug-in hybrid. Very smart car, actually, and it seems to also be changing the company's fortunes here in the UK. For one point, they actually weren't selling many cars at all, but now you are seeing quite a few of these on the road. It's got very distinctive alloy wheels, sort of a five-leaf clover, if you will. They really do look nice, actually. Interior's fairly spacious as well. Usually with SUVs it's a bit of a gripe, that, at least for me, that they're no more than hatchbacks on stilts. However, this does look roomy enough for 5 quite comfortably. It's just little touches with Alfa Romeos. I like how on the door mirror caps they've got the Italian flag on them, within the little repeater lights for the indicators. It's a very good looking car, actually. And as well as that, we've also got the Tesla stand, and curiously the models that they're showing are, well, certainly not curiously, the Tesla Model Y, which is the best-selling car in the world as of the first quarter of 2023, but we have still got the Tesla Model X, that being the massive large SUV one, the massive large SUV. Yeah, that makes sense, Jack. Now they're only doing these in left-hand drive configuration, which this one is, but it still does have the massive gull-wing doors and 7 seats, so it is a very practical vehicle if you can afford it, of course. And the Tesla Model S, which again are only left-hand drive these days. Right now you can only get the Model 3 and the Model Y in right-hand drive, but incredibly smart cars, these, very sleek, the Model S, even though it's actually now I think 11 years old. Well, at least 11 years ago those original shots of it came out. I don't quite know if it was officially out on the market yet, but incredibly cool stuff inside the Tesla's kind of stand. They have a little kind of tiny little building thing. They're actually selling Tesla t-shirts and merchandise, all of that kind of stuff, so that was very cool. As well as that, actually, Maya Energy have a Tesla Roadster, the very first Tesla. This one I think it actually was electric, however, yeah, there you go. It was originally based on the Lotus Elise, so very small, I'm sure you can imagine. Rear-wheel drive, of course it is fully electric. 244-mile range from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. This came out in 2008, and it was very innovative for the time. Sadly, very expensive too, which is why you didn't see that many of them. But certainly the company has come quite a long way since then. So far today we have really just had a bit of a browse, particularly around the market stand. I've been buying quite a few model cars that were on sale for rather low prices actually compared to what you get them for on eBay. And as well as that, we have had a look at, we've been sat in one of the paddocks watching some of the classic car owner clubs that are here celebrating various anniversaries. Would you believe it is the 120th anniversary of Ford in the UK, and as well as that Vauxhall 1903, of course, as well as that 70 years since the very first Chevrolet Corvette, 50 years of Caterham as well. Actually, I was talking to the chairman of the Caterham 7, or Lotus 7 if you will, owners club. Very friendly guy actually, and amazing to think that they are still in production after 50 years, half a century. Anyway, I think we are now going to have a look at the food stand and then head on over to the international paddock. Nice. Alright then, of course, every year Silverstone has an auction where they pretty much auction off really cool cars. Really expensive, sadly, but, by that I mean, well out of my price range, but we might as well have a bit of a browse around, see exactly what they have. And this is very, very cool indeed. It is a scimitar, a Middlebridge scimitar, so especially tuned, 1989 model. It was a press car, and it was loaned to Princess Anne as she awaited hers to arrive from the factory. And she actually got pulled over twice for speeding in this, going along the Foss Way, quite near to me, kind of Leicestershire, because it was much, it was very much so a high-performance version of the scimitar. Of course, the police officer did not fine Princess Anne when they realised exactly who it was. However, I think it was the same officer that pulled her over twice, so clearly did quite like the power, did Princess Anne. If you are not so much so into your British classic cars and you want something American, how about this? A 1959 DeSoto Fireflight Sportsman Coupe, or Coupe, because that's how the Americans say it for some reason. Massive, massive car, even bigger tail fins, of course. This was kind of peak era for tail fins. The tail lights are three kind of circular bars, really. Three circular bars. That doesn't really make much sense, but if you see a photo of it, you'll know what I mean. You've also got a two-layered bumper with the number plate in the middle of it that says "Watch Out, Christine's cousin." Christine, of course, being the Plymouth Fury, although this was very much so higher up than a Plymouth Fury in the model range. That is absolutely gorgeous. Really gorgeous BMW 2002 here. This seems to be the only show where I see these, but when I am here I see a lot of them. Really kind of 1970s BMW family saloon. It's just a two-door saloon. Very impressive for its time. Quite advanced, actually. It had fuel injection I think it had fuel injection. It's the 2002 Ti. Actually, it's the BMW 2002 Tii, and yes, it did have fuel injection. And they were always offered in really, really, luminous, almost neon shades. This one is a kind of very yellowy lime green. There are a few sort of patches where it looks a little bit on the rusty side. However, it can be yours for, would you believe, 18 to 22,000 miles. It's only done 14,000 miles on it, which is very, very impressive indeed. If that isn't really to your taste, you want something British, even though that one actually is right-hand drive as well, the BMW. How about a Ford Capri 3 litre? This is a second generation model, so the one with the really nice lift back on it. I always like the styling of these Mark II Capris over any of the other ones, I will be honest with you. Of course, you do pay though for the fast Ford tax, somewhere between £15,000 and £20,000. And this was actually a bit of history for you, a Silverstone doctor's car. So if any car got into a bit of a mess on the track, or indeed if the driver got unstuck on the track, this Capri would be very fast on the scene to make sure that they were all right. And interestingly, looking with retrospect, it went for about £9,000, which I think, with regard of everything else there and the prices they typically go for, was a bit of a bargain. Something a little bit more modern though, front-wheel drive, also Ford though. This looks to me like an XR3, maybe an XR3. No, it's an XR3, nearly new. It's only done 992 miles, so not even 1,000. There can't be too many like it in the country. It's between £20,000 and £25,000. If you equate value with price and size, these wouldn't necessarily be amazing value. However, they are very, very cool indeed. First up, we've got a 1964 Mini Cooper S. It's actually a 1967 one, but it's on a B reg, so I don't really know. But it's done not that many miles, actually, 31,826. Yours for between £25,000 and £30,000. Slightly more affordable than that. One for £20,000 to £25,000 is a 1966. It's an ex-Merseyside police car, would you believe? So this is what they would use to catch criminals. Well, if old movies have taught me anything, call them Mark II Jaguars. I don't like that, actually. It's a bit of history. It's not in your sort of light blue and white as many a police car was in that era. It's actually Old English white with a black roof. Sadly, a bit of rust, actually, just under the boots as well. That's a very cool van, actually. Yes, this is a 1969 Alfa Romeo A12 Transporter. It's again £25,000 to £30,000, a lot of money. However, a very, very unusual car. This is the only one registered in the UK. And if we're talking about kind of uncommon cars, this is really me, actually. not the Formula One cars. Sorry, not the Formula One cars. A Datsun 120A F2 Cherry Coupe. You don't see these often at all. I don't even know what year this one is. If I just have a quick look at the Scion. Only done 26,435 miles. It's incredibly rare. UK from new. It's only done 26,435 miles. It's yours for between £15,000 and £18,000. Alright then, so inside the auction, these are really cool. A pair of Ford Caprias. They both 3-litre S's, or they are both 3-litre S's that were used in the TV series The Professionals, of course, driven by Bodie and Doyle. One is bright gold, the other's silver. They're in lovely condition. I don't know how much they want for them though. Let's have a look. They will want 200 to 230,000 pounds they want for the pair of them. And on the complete other end of the spectrum, just in case you're listening to this and thinking to yourself, oh god, well there's no bargains here, someone just bought a Honda motor scooter for 150 quid and it was completely roadworthy. Nobody wanted it. Which is absolutely incredible. I was tempted to buy it just for kind of going around the show on, but no, I did not do that. Still, what an amazing pair of cars. So here's something that's rather interesting. It's a modern, and by modern I mean 2005, Mini Cooper, and it's a World Cup Special Edition. And not only that, it's been signed by the 2003 England World Cup team on the roof. Red and white, of course, with, rather than the Union flag, the St. George's flag. So, of course, just for England. Because they've signed it all, I think it's only done 59 miles as well. They want quite a bit of money for it, 30 to 35,000 pounds, probably more than it actually costs brand new. If that doesn't really take your fancy though, how about something rather useful? A single cab pickup of a 1976 Volkswagen Type 2, your sort of camper van if you will, but of course, as I say, it's a pickup truck rather than that. It's left-hand drive. I believe it's Greek, because there is some Greek, there's a Greek sticker I should say on the back, which is probably as it came from the factory. Absolutely stunning, this one. Let's have a look at the price. It is between 45 and 55,000 pounds. There is actually a cheaper camper van next to it. Again, just a Type 2. They're calling it a Westphalia camper van, and it actually does have the pop-up roof on it. However, it doesn't have any of the camper van innards. It is just the really, really lengthy 5-seater. That's rather strange. It's between 18 and 22,000 pounds, this one. You might be thinking to yourself, a lot of these cars are very expensive, but I really do want to stress, almost all of them are in amazing condition, actually. And now this car I absolutely wanted to see. It is a 1953 Land Rover Series 1. It's a pickup truck rather than a standard kind of convertible, because really none of them really had a roof then, or even any kind of side windows. This one does. And it is not necessarily in the best of conditions, just going back to what I was saying about a lot of these cars being in wonderful condition, hence their price. However, of course, this is a Land Rover. You don't really expect them to be in wonderful condition. A lot of them have just been used on farms. Looking at the backstory of this one, well, there isn't actually that much. It's been taken back to bare metal, as it says, and that is absolutely correct. There's no kind of paint on it whatsoever. This being a Series 1, 1953, will probably have a 1.6-litre engine still, although it is the lights, headlamps in front of the grille model. The one that my granddad had them behind the grille. I don't really know if that was to do with safety or the performance of the headlamps, anything like that. I'm not entirely sure, but you could have this one right here for £25,000 to £35,000. If you want something that's slightly more recent, slightly more usable for every day, we do have you covered there too. For £18,000 to £24,000, you can have a 1987 Land Rover 110. It's an Overfinch. Apparently this is the only one that was specially commissioned, a genuine Corvette engined Overfinch, and that means it's got the engine from a 570E. It's again a pickup truck, an incredibly powerful pickup truck by the sounds of things. What a machine it is. So for your £18,000 of your money, you could have something that is one of a kind. That's quite cool. Let's have a look, see if there's any cheaper than that. Well, this one certainly isn't cheaper, actually. This is a 2009 one, 42,000 to 52,000 pounds. It's low mileage, only doing 36,000 miles. Well, this one's actually a soft top, which is very unusual for a long wheelbase Defender, a 110. Apparently it's been specially converted, and that is why. One thing that I haven't found yet, and I wanted to find, there is supposedly here there's supposedly a taxi, a London LTI TX1 taxi or TX2 taxi that was owned by the Sultan of Oman, and I have not found that yet. I hope it's still made it to auction. Everything else that I've seen in the catalogue has, but either way, such an amazing place. Sadly, I never did find that taxi, but I did find the international paddock, so I thought I'd record there as well. So you join me in the international paddock where there is a lot of action going on. There always is, of course, preparing for the next event. I think right now things going on, I don't really know quite how you would distinguish them. A lot of cars from the 1950s and 60s. Next up, it looks like we've got some 1960s touring car action, a lot of Lotus Cortinas, first generation Mustangs, that sort of thing. Particularly though the Cortinas, of course, they were very, very successful, amazing to drive, as I know from my one experience going probably about 5 times around a rather small track. A lot of them, well, I don't know whether it was a lot of them were made, and they certainly were made for a long period of time as far as sort of motorsport cars go, and of course a lot of them were cherished. Also got a few Ford, are they Falcons? I think they are Ford Falcons, yes. The American Compact from 1960 up until 1968, 1969. Of course, they did have quite a bit of a career in motorsports too. Some tiny little Cooper. What you just heard there were 2 Cooper, probably Formula 2 cars. Don't really know that much about the non-road going side of things, but back to these Fords, they are absolutely gorgeous. I was going to head back into the auction for a moment. In fact, actually, right now I'm looking at a Ford Galaxy 500 XL, and this is absolutely stunning, it has to be said. Quite a few of these, and as well as that, of course, when we're talking about 1960s touring cars, we need to talk about the original Minis. First generation, well, indeed Series 1 pre-facelift, 1959 to 1968, of course, front-wheel drive, which then was very unusual. Not as powerful as the Cortinas, or certainly the Mustangs and Ford Falcons, however, amazing around corners. Alright then, day 2 of Silverstone Classic, and actually it's already about 1 o'clock, half 1. I haven't actually done that much recording today because it started out raining and we went to the Silverstone Museum. Of course, we did a piece on that a long time ago, actually, when it just had reopened after the COVID pandemic. If you recall, it had a massive refurbishment, was officially opened like a few weeks before the pandemic actually hit, so everything was still very fresh when we went there. Still very good, still nice and interactive. A lot of people there actually this weekend, because if you get tickets to Silverstone Festival, you get to the museum free. So that took up a large slice of the morning. Also keep on going back to the Diddley Squat Farm shop, because there are rumours that Jeremy Clarkson might be here today, and you never know, would be good if I can try and get him to do an interview. I don't really know. Just had my lunch while watching some Formula 1 cars, and now just looking at some really nice Triumph Roadsters. Well, I say Triumph Roadsters, that's a thing in its own right, but you know what I mean, small sports cars, TRs really, from the TR register. It's a gorgeous TR TS2, actually it says it is. And this is actually the very first right-hand drive TR. It was a pre-production prototype built in 1953, and it has been a part of the TR register since it was donated in 1999. Next to that you've got the TR6, which of course is incredibly well known. Indeed, not just over here in the UK, but also sold very well in America too. Actually, when I went to Norway, that was the first classic car that I saw, a TR6. Just goes to show how popular they were. Alright then, now it's time for my favourite part of this show, and that says something about me. The rarest car section. This is still done by the Telegraph in conjunction with Motor Easy, and it is what it really says on the tin. A load of really rare cars that used to be very common, however, most of them made their fate with the big crusher. We've got a Proton here, well, I don't even know quite what these ones were called. I think they ended up being called the Proton MPI. They're known in their native Malaysia as the Proton Saga, and when these first came out in 1985, the Malaysian automobile press were actually forbidden to say anything negative about it, because it was sort of a, the first unique car, shall we say, made in the country. And indeed it did very well for itself. I think they made it up until about 2008, so it's a very, very long production run indeed. Got a Sierra here, pre-facelift one on a Y reg, so that's 82, a launch one. Interesting thing about these early Sierras is the wing mirrors, or door mirrors I should say, they actually hang down, which is just very, very unusual to see. I've only ever seen one, well, I should say this one I think is fairly low down in the model range, however not the bottom of the barrel. The bottom of the barrel entry-level one, I think it was just called the Standard, had a matte black grille. I've only ever seen one of those. I think there's just the one that exists now. Here's something very unusual, a Volkswagen Santana GX5, I'm assuming 5 speed. Now I say this is unusual, it's basically just the saloon version of the Passat of its era. However, these were made in China for a very, very long time, 1984, all the way up, well, into the 21st century, certainly. I'm assuming that this one would have just been a German-built one. However, this car really kick-started the Chinese car industry. So it's got a lot to answer for, I suppose you could say. Next to that, you've got something which at first glance looks a lot like an Austin Princess. However, it isn't. It's a Wolseley. This was a very, very early example of what became the Princess. I think the very last car to be badged as a Wolseley as well, which is very nice indeed. Toyota Tercel next to that, of course, four-wheel drive estate car from the 80s, and an Austin Ambassador, very much so the end product of the Princess. If you're wondering what the difference was, this had a rear hatchback and a bit more in the way of glass as well. Don't actually know if there was anything different under the bonnet. However, on the dashboard we actually have one of those little Sinclair TVs, which was sort of pocket size and very revolutionary at about the time that the Ambassador was coming out. Here's something that was at the Festival of the Unexceptional, and I don't think I actually sort of highlighted it. However, it is very, very rare indeed. It is the only remaining, at least in the UK, pre-facelift Citroën BX Estate. Now, they only sold the BX Estate in pre-facelift form for a few months before actually, just giving the front end a once-over, giving it a more conventional dashboard, something that, a wider audience would have appreciated. So not many were sold in the first place. As I say, it's the last remaining one. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got a 1.9 litre diesel engine in the XUD, and that was just bulletproof. I think naturally aspirated though, there wasn't a turbocharger, as it were. Next to that, we've got a Nissan Pro. We were talking about these a couple of weeks ago on the show at Mallory. There was one there, and next to that, a Lancia. I am terrible with Lancias, actually. It is a Lancia Trevi automatic. It's a weird name. And this is the last remaining one of these. They built 40,628 of them, but this is the only sold one in the UK. And what an example it is, actually. You get the, so many people saying that Lancias, particularly of this era, the build quality was awful. Well, clearly a lot of work's gone into this one because it looks pristine. Another estate car that was only sold for a few months before receiving a facelift was the Allegro Estate, and there's one of these here as well. I didn't even know there were actually any known remaining examples. If you're wondering, that's a Nissan Skyline. This certainly is no Skyline though. This Allegro Estate is a 1300. That looks like an A-series, quite tall. Might be wrong though. I'll have a look at the badge, I think. Oh, it just says it's an Allegro Super. I think it is an A series, and I don't think they ever did an 1100 version of the Estate though. No square steering wheel. By this point they'd already actually removed that feature from the Allegro. I was reading an article the other day that said that when the police first bought a fleet of Allegros as panda cars, they insisted that they had round steering wheels in those. Very conventional interior actually compared to some of the earlier models. However, of course, the styling's very unconventional. In order to give the largest load area, when you actually open the tailgate, they have put the hinges higher than the rest of the car, so it has this weird little flick to the rear end. It's rather unusual. If you've seen a photo of one, you'll know exactly what I'm on about, and if not, well, I encourage you to do so because my description's not all that good. Alright then, we're on the GCC Car Club stand, and they have got some amazing cars here actually. A lot of BMC stuff and BLMC, British Leyland. We've got it's an Austin or a Morris 1100. This one is an Austin 1100 B-Reg 1964. Again, kitted out in all kinds of retro gear, an old steeple tone radio, that kind of stuff. It's sort of like Panama hat. Very nice indeed. I love the clip-on door mirror there, as well, of course, as the wing-mounted ones. MGB GT next to that. L-Reg 1972, 73. One of the last ones actually to have the chrome bumpers rather than the plastic ones to conform with American safety regulation. Nissan Payo, of course, based on the K10 Micra. This is really nice actually. Very quirky. Never sold here, only sold in Japan, but imported in great numbers along with the Figaro, of course. Pininfarina styled Peugeot 306 convertible in bright yellow, as a lot of them were. That is one of those cars that you only ever see in yellow, actually. But they do look very good in it. Very summery car, actually, and not sort of coated in bugs as so many yellow cars get in the summer. Speaking of yellow, we've got a Triumph TR7 W-Reg 1980 or 81. And next to that, a sand-glow coloured Austin Maxi 1750 HL. Very well-appointed one with row-style wheels. Mostly cloth upholstery, vinyl on the side. You've got your kind of polished kind of walnut dashboard, and around the other side of the stand we also have, wait for it, a Princess. Again, I think this is sand glow. No, it's not sand glow. It's actually a metallic-y kind of goldy colour, brown vinyl roof because it is the 1970s. This one is a T-Reg, so 1978, 79. Again, very brown interior. What else can I say about this? It's absolutely gorgeous. Again, wonderful condition. It's a 2200, which of course means, well, that was the largest engine that they fitted in these, I believe, and it also means that it got the very distinctive trapezoidal headlamps. Very nice, that. Now I'm here at the MG Owners Club stand, and as you can imagine, a lot of MGs, mostly MGBs and MG midgets. Let's just have a look at an MG midget. This is a probably Harvest Gold rather than Sanglow 1971 example. Really nice actually. Again, this is before they put on the rubber bumpers, but they had a matte black grille, which was very trendy at the time. Of course, the earlier ones had kind of vertical slats. Same colour. There's an MGB V8, which is on German number plates. Starts with UL, but sadly I don't know that much about German number plates to actually know exactly where that one came from. If you're after your sort of later MGs, there's an MG ZT here, of course the sporty version of the Rover 75, something to appeal to the younger generation. Also got a ZT, which of course was the Rover 45. We even have an MG, is this a HS or an XS, or what do they call these ones? This is a HS. I don't actually know how old this one is. It's certainly not old at all. It's their latest SUV, kind of Kia Sportage Sorento-y sized. Just going to show that there is actually a lot of love for MGs that are currently being made, actually. And I should say that because I've got an MG hat on right now, which was a freebie last year. I haven't actually seen the modern day MG stand at the show this year. There is an Alpine stand or Alpine stand, which I do want to check out. We've also got an MG Metro Turbo. Yeah, it is a turbo actually, 1989 model. You forget that it really was just a 1.3 with a turbo slapped on. For the Turbo Maestro that they did, they actually fitted a 2-litre engine. Don't know if you can actually hear me over the noise of the racing. Again, still very much so going on in full swing. Lovely MGA here as well, actually. A later one with the 1600cc B-Series engine. Sadly, we don't know quite how old it is. I think they made these between 1969 and 1962 when they introduced the MGB. Really, really stunning example. Another observation about the MGB GT, you forget that they actually were a 4-seater, however, rather laughably so. In fact, I don't actually know whether with the roof up, the Roadsters were as well, but certainly with the GT you can see that there is a little backrest and absolutely no legroom at all. If you are travelling with front occupants, it's really odd. Maybe if you had a very, very small child, you might just get away with it if they're in a car seat, but for the most part, yeah, that's not going to be used for anything other than maybe your luggage. There's also a frog-eyed sprite here, actually. I don't quite know. No, sorry, that's on the next stand, the Midget and Sprite Club. Aerial Atom over there, just on the main stretch of road, going on to another section of the show. And just to finish off on the MG stand, this is absolutely gorgeous, something you really don't see much of. The MG SVR, really, really high performance. I don't know if you remember that in the latter days of MG, when they were kind of running out of money, they were coming out with these really, really outlandish claims of cars that they'd be doing more of, and this was one of them. Something almost sort of bordering on supercar territory. They said back then that there would be modules that you could fit to this car that would make it produce 1,000 brake horsepower, and in 2005 that was unheard of. I don't know whether if they actually did achieve that, but certainly they did make them, and here is one of them. And with that we come to the end of our look at Silverstone Festival, and indeed as well as that the end of this, the first podcast edition of the show. Before we do go though, may I just say, well, first things first, thank you ever so much for listening. Our commercial quiz time, mystery commercial I should say, was for the Renault Megane. Very well done if you got that. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to join us for our next podcast next week, of course, in the same places, where amongst other things we will be finding out about more of the latest motoring news, and we're also going magazine musing, which I'll tell you about in a little more detail next week. I really do hope that you'll be able to join me for that. I've been Jack Mortimer, thank you for listening, and drive safely.